I won't tell you how old I am, but it is a 4 followed by a 1.
Winners never quit, and quitters never win.
Quitters win all the time. Let us show you how on Quit Happens.
Hey everyone, Lynn Marie here. Welcome to the special birthday episode of Quit Happens. It is, to be clear, my birthday and not Quit Happens' birthday, which is, I believe, January 3rd. I'll look that up and be sure. But for my birthday, I thought I would do my own little personal quit story. And I'm way underselling it here because it's kind of not a little quit. But per the title that says, it's my birthday, I can quit if I want to, it sounds like it's very joyful. And guess what? At the end of all quits is joy, because that's the entire point. You are quitting something that isn't working for you and bringing you to something that is working better for you, to a freer place. So we will get into my own quit in just a minute. Before we go there, just wanted to say, if anybody out there is feeling stuck in some area of their lives, you, podcast listener, please come check out more about strategic quitting at quittingbydesign.com or Quitting by Design on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube's, where you can find all of my quits of the week. And you can head on over to Facebook, where we've got a new group that's growing kind of rapidly called Quitopia. And it is the haven for all things strategic quitting, a nice group where we can support each other, and I'll do some additional Facebook Lives and share some more things about quitting. And one last thing, I've started taking on some private coaching clients. And if you'd like to be one of them, the first step is to go to quittingbydesign.com, click on the coaching page, and then scroll down to the bottom, fill out your info, and we will set up a complimentary clarity call to dive deeply into your unique quit. Oh, one other little thing. I never do this. I'm supposed to do this. Everybody else does this. But if you could leave a little review, that would be lovely. Admittedly, iTunes is very hard to leave reviews on. It is not intuitive. So if you go to your podcast app and then you go search for Quit Happens, and then you're on the page with some random episodes because it just gives you random ones, scroll down to the bottom and it'll say leave a review. If you could leave a review, that helps other people out in the pod sphere find Quit Happens and hopefully help them with their own strategic quit. Now, without further ado, here comes my little story. I'm going to tell you 2 anecdotes related to my quit. The first is back in 2013. So to set the stage, I was training a martial art called Capoeira. If you don't know what Capoeira is, it's a Brazilian martial art started by the slaves that were brought over from Africa. They were trying to disguise their fighting as a dance so that they wouldn't be punished for it. And it is done in a circle, and it is done to music that is being played live by other people in that circle. There are a lot of Afro-Brazilian instruments involved, mostly percussion, and then there's singing in Portuguese. So the people in the front who are playing the instruments, they'll take turns leading the rest of the group in song, the circle, and then people will take turns buying into the game while 2 people are playing against each other. And it can be a friendly game, it can be an aggressive game, but it's a martial art. And as I have discussed in my Facebook Life and in some other places on the Quitting by Design blog, I started Capoeira at some point, I think 2008. And I made it all of 3 days. And I thought, this is brutal. I am not cut out for this martial art business. I'm going to get injured. Because it also involves a lot of acrobatics. And we were doing acrobatics on a concrete floor. And I had grown up as a gymnast, and you did not do acrobatics on a concrete floor barefoot. That just sounded like a terrible idea altogether, especially as a doctor, because I was seeing all these people from the Capoeira class coming into my sports medicine clinic with these injuries. And I thought, okay, no, I am not doing this, whatever this is. It looks really cool, but no, too dangerous. And then a few years later, I saw many other women my age and my size and not any seemingly tougher than I was doing it and really enjoying it. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to give this another try. And as some of my close friends will attest to, I have a little issue with being goal-oriented. I like to set goals and accomplish goals. And, much of the self-development journey is detaching myself from goals and just enjoying things in the moment. But flashing backwards to 2011 when I started Capoeira in earnest, I was still pretty goal-oriented. And I remember being in one of the first classes and looking around. And just like many other martial arts, there's a color system. Like in karate, you're familiar with black belts and there's yellow belts and white belts. Capoeira has the same, different colors, but still kind of the same like hierarchy of these cords that hold up our Capoeira uniform pants. And I remember looking around and I was like, okay, the people with the orange cord, it looks like they are pretty good. And I am going to stay in Capoeira until I get an orange cord. Like, I realized it was going to be very difficult. I mean, I am not a martial artist. I had never been great at any sport ever. But I said, like, don't quit this. Even back in the day, I knew I was pretty good at quitting things. And I said to myself, do not quit either until you've done this for 4 years. I don't know how I picked 4 years. Or you've gotten an orange cord. And I later realized that 4 years is typically the time to get to an orange cord. So that all worked out for my little plan. And at the beginning, it was difficult because it's brand new. And I thought, okay, well, I was a dancer and I was a gymnast. I'm going to be good at this because it's essentially kind of like a dance fight. And I was distinctly not good at it, like super terrible. I could do I would play really poorly and then just throw in an acrobatic to try to distract from how bad I was at actually playing. But my teacher was not distracted. He was like, you just look like you're kind of having a seizure out there. It is not graceful. And it was mortifying. And at some point, a lot of strife came from that situation, and also the fact that I was a low level and there was a hierarchy and there were certain things that you couldn't do as a low level person. And that thing specifically was play the musical instruments. And I've been a musician my whole life. And basically playing the musical instruments was the one thing I could do in Capoeira that I felt like, okay, I'm flowing, I'm decent at this, not great, but like I picked those instruments up much more quickly than I picked up the physical aspect. But in the hierarchy system, the instruments were reserved for the higher up people. And so fast forward to 2013, I'd been training Capoeira for 2 years, not amazing at it. And sometime in that year, I had torn both my left labrum, that's a shoulder part, and my left ACL in my knee. So by the time I go to Burning Man in August of 2013, I have already had my ACL reconstructed and I cannot play Capoeira. I was out for 6 months. And I found out that there was going to be Capoeira at Burning Man. And I go and, it's a bunch of people in their Burning Man clothes. There's no uniform and nobody has on any color of cord. And we're all from different groups. So if we would have had on colors of cords, it wouldn't even made sense because every group has their own cord color system. And so it comes time at the end of this Capoeira class that they had at Burning Man to have the game. We did some training, and then at the end of every class, we get in the circle, people grab the instruments, they start singing, everybody else starts responding, singing, clapping, the game gets played. That's how Capoeira is played. So it comes time to do that, and I look at the guy running the class, and I said, who can play the instruments? Who can lead this circle? Who can lead this game? And he looked at me almost kind of quizzically, and he said, whoever can. And that was such a revelation at the time because I had been so trapped in this like hierarchical system where I couldn't play the instruments that this was like, oh my God. And I grabbed the main instrument and I led a Capoeira game for my first time ever. And it was so liberating and so beautiful. And I thought like, this is what I meant to do. But take note of the part of this story where I'm not actually playing Capoeira, right? I am playing the music and I am loving it. And there was one other Capoeira story that sticks out in my head. And I've been training for 7 years at this point, 2018. But this is, I think, maybe 2016. We had a class where my teacher, I moved to a different group, much better group, great teacher. His name was Masape. And he had this class where he wanted us to work on kind of our expression. You're supposed to be, like I said, kind of dancing in the game. And so instead of playing this music in Portuguese done to these same percussion instruments with, essentially the same songs, we learn these songs and you sing them over and over. There's a number of songs, but every group has their kind of routine songs. They play a lot. Instead of playing those, he puts on Michael Jackson's They Don't Care About Us. And I don't know if you can picture that song in your head right now, but it's so powerful and it's got all these kind of like hard hitting breaks and stops. And I'm playing against my friend whose capoeira name was Sipo. And he and I go from like playing kind of traditional capoeira and to doing moves, but we are dancing. I am hitting handstands on the beat. I am flowing. I am having essentially the game of my life. And I remember finishing it. I think that my teacher even said like, wow, that was the best game you've ever played. Like it was not subtle that this was like something completely different that took me over in this specific instance. Now, just remember those two situations. So in my capoeira life, many times, I got slightly better and better, but never great and never necessarily at the pace that I thought I should get. And at some point in time, I got the orange cord and I kept going because at that point, I was fully in it and my family was essentially my capoeira group. And another thing is it became part of my identity, like it was slightly more interesting than being like a doctor lawyer. It was like this kind of ninja thing I did on the side. And it was cultural, and I love that aspect. And there's just a group throughout the world. You can go anywhere and say, hey, I train capoeira, and somebody from that capoeira group will put you up. There's lots of great, great, great things about the capoeira community. But I always had this like secret in my head, which was I don't really enjoy playing capoeira in the roda. That's the circle. Like I didn't, like your traditional like capoeirista, the person who does capoeira, yearns to like jump in and play because there's only two people at a time and you like have to fight your way to get in to play, and all I wanted to do was play the instruments ever. And I always felt like this dirty little secret, like I even got a chord above the orange chord, like which is like the part where you're supposed to be getting ready to teach. And I just kept feeling like this fraud, this total imposter. Like everybody thinks I'm a ninja and all I really want to do is stand near the ninjas and play the music. And this starts to remind me of the days when I was in medical school. And everybody else in medical school would say like, oh my gosh, I love all these rotations so much. I love doing family medicine. I love doing surgery because in medical school, they let you kind of like do these month-long rotations through these different specialties. Oh, I love neurology. I love them all so much. I can't even barely pick a specialty that I want to go into. I like them all. I, on the other hand, would say, oh, I don't like any of them. I just want to do sports medicine. And later, that came back to me, and I realized if you don't like anything else that's peripherally related to medicine, besides that one little thing, maybe that should have been a sign to me that medicine was not my one true passion and calling. And flashing back to capoeira, when people would ask me, people outside of the capoeira community, describe capoeira to me. And I would describe it, but I would say, and it's played to music. And I would almost invariably say, if it weren't, I wouldn't do it. Like I was clearly only doing it because there was music. And I was also doing it to challenge myself. Like I had said, oh, okay, you're not quitting this thing. And it did. It took me from a very fragile seeming person to somebody who felt very strong. Like I do not look like I did 7 years ago. I am much less scared of somebody approaching me. I have some self-defense skills, and I've taken a kick and I've taken a hit and I've knocked people down and a lot of things I could never have imagined doing. So I got so much out of it. But part of me was staying for the challenge, and part of me was staying for, the great community. And the other part of me was staying for the music. But all of these would be surrounding the fact that I kept feeling I was hiding the secret of like, I don't really enjoy what it means to be doing traditional capoeira, which is to like go inside the circle and be doing the moves to this very traditional music that is generally like the same, and doesn't necessarily have because since we're all singing it in a group, there can't be fun stops. Like I was talking about with the Michael Jackson song, it's very kind of repetitive. Some songs are way more repetitive than others. And I would have a hard time even playing if it was kind of like an extra repetitive song and it didn't have any kind of like jazzy part to it. I would feel my energy being so low. So gets to this year, and it's time where like I realize, okay, I've had the same chord level that I've been at for 3 years, and the last time somebody had been there for 3 years, she moved up to the next chord level. And I'm in France, and I'm at a capoeira event in France. And essentially, I went because I felt as though I should. Like I was going to Europe, there was a capoeira event happening, I should go to this thing. Like that's going to show I'm a dedicated student. So I go to this event, and everybody at the event is playing capoeira in the circle, only if they were like above the chord level I was at. And it occurred to me, like, if you move up in chord levels, you're going to be expected to get in there and play against like some really good people. And you're going to be expected to like look like you're wanting to get in there. and you're going to be exposed for the fraud that you are. And I had been working toward, getting this other chord level, and it just kind of smacked me in the face, like this reality, like you're working toward a goal that you don't want. Like essentially working toward it just to say to myself, oh, I did it. I accomplished this thing. But that thing came with extra responsibility that I had no interest in having. At the next chord level, you're supposed to teach. I didn't want to teach capoeira. I've got like 1,000 other things I want to be doing. I would love to teach capoeira music, but not the rest of it. And like standing there in France, it all just kind of came like crashing down. Like, what am I doing? And why am I doing this? And I didn't say anything to anybody because I have enough experience in my own intuition in quitting that if I start to have these realizations, they're going to either flesh themselves out in one direction and I'm going to quit, or something is going to come and change my mind and turn it around and I will stay. So I definitely took note at that point, like, hold it. Why am I doing this? Like, why do I do this thing all the time that I essentially feel like a fraud at? Like, man, I love the singing. I love it so much when I get to like actually be one of the people playing the instruments and singing. But there are very, very many times that doesn't happen. Like not every class does that happen that I get to sing. At these big events, since there are many people higher than me, I almost never get to sing or play the instruments. And I thought like, man, I need to really reevaluate the reasons I'm doing this. And this is what strategic quitting looks like, my friends. When your like body or anxiety or something else starts talking to you, and it's not necessarily just the voice in your head, because sometimes the voice in our head just says negative things to us for fun. But when I just kept feeling almost like nauseous about the fact that like, oh my gosh, I should feel like I should want to play. Like even at my own chord level, I could have like gotten in and played at this thing in France. And I kept thinking, the guy who's in charge of like, my group, the master of the group is going to be judging me. He's going to think, why didn't she play more? She should be playing more. And like this word kept coming up. All these shoulds, like I should have gone to France and done this thing. I should want to play. I should be playing more. I should enjoy playing in the circle. And that to me was the biggest sign. Like, you don't live your life according to shoulds. You teach everybody to not live their life according to shoulds. You teach everybody else to live their life following their own intuition. And I'm pretty good at noticing things like this. But sometimes when you've built an identity around something, and maybe you've built your community around something, it gets much harder to see those signs pop up. I mean, I have had this secret, like gnawing anxiety in the back of my head for years that people are going to find out that I don't really like playing. And this is not something that you can just like, fake, and you can work through it. Yes, like there are people who've developed a love for the game, but after 7 years, and I have so many passions that I was not following, or not necessarily passions, but like activities that I wanted to explore, but I wasn't following them because capoeira is not just like, oh, you go once a week and you're fine. You're supposed to go multiple times a week. And that was the other thing, is that I used to go multiple times a week. In fact, there was a time back in like 2011, 12, 13, I was going 7 days a week. And in the past year, I've had a hard time going once. And then not only would capoeira take up just that one night, but it would take up all this headspace that I had, knowing that every other night I should be going. And it's not that like my teacher was disappointed that I wasn't going, but there is a desire to have your people there all the time. So recently I started thinking, okay, what happens if I leave capoeira? And it's funny because I have a book coming out September 28th. Yes, I finally have a date for it. And there is a chapter in the book on quitting an identity. And what do I say in that chapter? I specifically talk about how if you look at my like Twitter profile or whatever, my identity says, I'm like a doctor, lawyer, capoeirista. And I even say in the book, I mean, this is written and printed out probably now at this point, that I can't ever imagine quitting capoeira. Luckily, there's like a comma there, and it says, but if I do, I'll be okay because I have other identities. Like you can have multiple identity, diversification of identities. If it was my only identity, quitting capoeira would be very, very difficult. And it's just so funny to me that I wrote that down And still, even at that point, literally, and this is, within the past 2 years that I wrote that book, just could not contemplate walking away. But at some point in the past few months, I thought the amount of like mental space that these shoulds are taking up versus the amount of joy that I get, like the few minutes that I might get to like be singing at the end of class, versus all the anxiety I have about people finding out my secret, that I'm not a true capoeirista, that I don't really want to get in there and play. I just started weighing them. And I was like, man, I love singing at the end of class, but that few minutes that may come once a week is not worth all the other stress and friction in my life. And so I had already said that, okay, I'm going to lead this song at our Capoeira event this year. So I stuck around, I stuck out until the Capoeira event. And then, even then, like the quitting was kind of fuzzy in my head. But I've had this 7-month hamstring injury, and that also was not helping me go to Capoeira more. But in that week that we had the event, I thought, I need to set an example. I'm one of the higher chords. I should go every day. And so despite the fact that my leg was nearly falling off, I went every day. And despite the fact that 2 of my good friends had a wedding on Friday of the event, I said to them, I cannot go to your wedding. I should go to this event. Like, that should have just smacked me in the face right there. But still, like, sometimes you're so ingrained in a thing that you just keep pressing forward. It's like, I got to do this. I should do this. And somewhere in that week, when my leg gave out and when I just had lost all joy, I thought, no, none of these, this is not right. This is not in alignment with me. I'm going to have to break this identity. It's just going to happen. And so before the day that they handed out the cords, I even told some friends, I was like, this is my last. Like, I'm not training anymore. And I remember thinking, like, as they're handing out the cords, like, oh, I really, like, the goal-oriented part of me thought, oh, yeah, accomplish that goal. I hope you get it. And every other part of me said, God, I hope you don't get that, because you are not going to ever wear that thing again. And you're going to be a total fraud. And it's going to be very awkward if you like get this cord and then say, oh, thank you for this cord. I'm quitting. Like, thanks for all the faith you put in me, but I'm out of here. And I didn't end up getting the cord. And I remember thinking, no matter what happened, if I got the cord, I didn't get the cord, the quitting conversation was going to be very awkward. And this is where another part of strategic quitting comes in, is a lot of the fear with quitting is, what are people going to think? And I had to say to myself, well, it doesn't matter. Like, if I get the cord and I quit, they're going to think, like, that's really weird. Like, how kind of, what an disrespectful thing to do. You just got a cord, now you're just going to quit. And if I didn't get the cord, they were going to think, oh, she's just mad she didn't get the cord, that's why she's quitting. There was essentially not a winning situation in either of those. Like, there was no win. The only win would have been to like verbalize my quit the day before the event. But I thought that was a really weird energy to bring. So I decided I'm not going to. I'm just going to wait until like the week after and everything has settled. And sure enough, all of those things have happened since. And it's fine, because at the end of the day, what does matter? My own peace of mind. And the minute that I made that decision to quit, that, kind of like earlier in the week, watching the flood of things that left my head, like just the space, I all of a sudden thought to myself, oh my God, I can try like steel mace and Indian clubs and all these kind of workout things I'd wanted to try. And I stopped and I thought to myself, you could have tried those all before. Like, you were only going to Capoeira one night a week. And that's when I realized the amount of mental space that the shoulds took up was what told me, no, you can't do another thing. You should be spending more time at Capoeira. You don't have the right to like go find some other hobbies if you're not spending more time at Capoeira. And as soon as I got rid of those shoulds, so much opened up and so many opportunities. And I felt so much lighter, and just like the anxiety of like everybody finding out my secret, which, by the way, here's a podcast about my secret. And now everybody knows, but just the anxiety went away. Like, I'm not trying to be something I'm not anymore. You know what? I'm a singer. I'm a musician. Those are my jam. I did martial arts. I'm still a capoeirista at heart. Somewhere down, in my heart, if I run into a group of people playing capoeira in the street somewhere, would I join in and have fun for a minute? Yes. But do I want to be training in a situation where I feel as though like I should be doing certain things, for my teacher or for the master, because the group says, or because of this and that? No, that's no longer in line with my values and my passions and what I want for my life. And so that's a huge quit for me. Like to this day, people still like, oh, you still ninjaing, and oh, you're doing this and that with, and they'll make little like kicking motions in my general direction. And, I just, some people I tell, some people I kind of want to tell because they, people who've known me only through capoeira. And it's funny that most people just say, I know you know what's best for you. And that has meant so much that most people have not questioned my motives. They know like I'm a thoughtful person. It's not an easy thing to give up something that you've made your identity out of for 7 years. That is, kind of your family. And they said, hey, I hope, best of luck with whatever you try to do next. We'll always love you. And that's meant the world to me. So this was kind of rambly, but I thought, there's a lot of strategic quitting points in here. There's following your intuition, dealing with the fact that you're leaving an identity. I'm saying you're me, leaving an identity and facing the fears of what other people would think. But at the end of the day, all I feel is freedom. And at the end of the day, with your strategic quits, all I can ever hope for you is that you feel the same freedom. So my friends, I'm going to go celebrate my birthday, and I hope you all have something to celebrate as well. And until next time, happy quitting.